Okay, we're ready to get started. Welcome everyone to today's event for the official unveiling of the new international branding campaign for Belgium by the Chancellery of the Prime Minister. My name is Dave Keating. I'm a journalist based here in Brussels. I am American by background, but I've been a Belgian resident for 13 years, happily so. And today we're going to be hearing from business leaders, political leaders, academics, artistic voices about why Belgium is a great place to work, live, and create. I'm going to be guiding us through today's conversation where we're going to hear about the campaign and then we're going to discuss its implications and why exactly Belgium has these attributes. So, to get us started, I'd like to welcome to the podium Arlene Bagdat, President of the Chancellery of the Prime Minister.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's with great pleasure that I welcome you here today on behalf of the Chancellery of the Prime Minister. I would like to extend a very special welcome to our distinguished guests. I can think of no better venue for this launch of Belgium's new international positioning than right here in the Residence Palace. Residence Palace, a century-old landmark example of Belgian Art Deco architecture and an emblematic place in the contemporary history. Now, home of the International Press Center, truly a fitting location for the launch of an international campaign for Belgium. Many of you may be curious to know how this new positioning differs from what Belgium has done in the past. So first, let's take a step back. The previous campaign was born after the terrorist attacks in Brussels in 2016. A difficult moment for our country. But we chose not to sit idly by. Instead, we launched the Belgium Uniquely Phenomenal campaign, demonstrating our resilience and determination. The campaign was aimed at improving Belgium's reputation among tourists and investors, abroad and in Belgium, and focused on 99 reasons to come to Belgium or to invest in Belgium, because 100 will be too many. Today we enter a new phase with a new 3-year campaign that will promote our country to very specific audiences worldwide, and more specifically in Europe for this year. Investors, researchers, people and organizations with whom Belgium partners, and who help us innovate. Why? Why? Well, you may have noticed that we, Belgians, are modest about our success. We tend not to boast about our achievements. We are proud of what we have to offer, a country full of innovation. We are constantly building bridges, value partnerships, and we are open to the world. That was the starting point of our new communication campaign. Over 3 years, we will encourage new investments, partnerships, and while also promoting Belgian talent, know-how, and innovation. In just a few moments, our Prime Minister will take the stage to launch the new strategy and shed light on the Belgian values we are determined to promote. Starting in June, the new Belgian country brand will be visible in Brussels Airport to welcome all international passengers to our country. Next to that, we'll set up extra actions that focus on more specific subjects or current events. Think, for example, on the recent North Sea Summit in Ostend, a fantastic example of what our country is capable of and the perfect embodiment of this campaign before it was even born. We also look forward to celebrating in June 20 years of same-sex marriage in Belgium and the start of the presidency of the Council of the European Union in 2024. It will be a great opportunity to showcase our well-known openness to work together and embrace different perspectives. Taken together, these actions will guarantee our country's international visibility, showing researchers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and more, what we have to offer. May I, once again, take this opportunity to thank you for joining us this morning and to express our appreciation for your participation. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thanks, Arlene. I'd like to next welcome to the podium Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo. Now, before becoming Prime Minister in October 2020, Prime Minister De Croo served as Finance Minister and as Minister for Development Cooperation, the Digital Agenda, Telecom, and Postal Services. He's from just to the north of us, here in the capital, in Vilvoorde, just across the border, our near neighbor. So, Prime Minister De Croo, I hand over the floor to you.
Good morning, everyone, and what a pleasure to see all of you here in this magnificent place. Welcome, and I think we have a story to tell, and that I hope is the reason why you are here. First of all, I would like to welcome our three distinguished guests who will take the floor afterwards, and let me present them to you. First of all, Mrs. Ilham Kadri, who is the CEO of Solvay. Solvay is one of those typical Belgian, a bit hidden gems. A company that is a long-term innovator and that has shown long-term technological leadership, and she will have the occasion to talk about it. Second person on stage will be Federica Mogherini. Federica Mogherini, who is now director of the College of Europe in Bruges, who is the former High Representative of the European Union, and we have spent many days together discussing, when I was Minister of Development, about the role of Europe in the world, and about openness, and about also how this openness is throughout the world under pressure today. Third person is Mr. Brandon Wen, who leads the Antwerp Fashion Academy. That's a very different world than the two other people who will come on stage. But that Fashion Academy is really a beacon in the world of creativity and a good example of what we are capable of in Belgium. There is a reason why we have chosen those three persons to be on stage and to talk about Belgium. And that's because the three of them represents three elements. It's openness to innovation, openness to partnerships, and openness to diversity. Those are the three pillars of the baseline for our country, which is embracing openness. We've asked him to be on stage. Also, as Arlene said, our modesty makes it hard for us to talk about ourselves, so then we ask three non-Belgians to do it. But I think they also have really very tangible experience and make it very clear on what it is to be in Belgium and what it is to be in this very international place in the world, and what it means to them. But as an introduction for myself, maybe first of all, why do we need a country branding? Because that's maybe the first question to ask. I see three reasons why we need a country branding and why we need it right now. Reason number one, we are more than beer and chocolate. And our beer and chocolate is second to none in the world. And it is an important element of our culture. But we are so much more than that. And as Arlene said, our previous campaign, Uniquely Phenomenal, was more centered around visit and tourist objectives. It was more centered around our symbols, such as Manneken Pis, such as the Belgian chocolate, the Belgian beer, and so on. And there's so many things that you can experience in Belgium. But the truth of the matter is that we are so much more than those elements that most people know. And we've shown that to the world over the last years. We are one of the major centers of healthcare in the world. And when we had COVID, we produced here vaccines for the whole world. More than half of what was exported out of the European Union was actually produced here, and that's only 2 vaccines. There is so much more in the life sciences sector. We are one of the world leaders in the research on tropical diseases, the basic work on Ebola, on treatment of HIV/AIDS. All of that has happened here in Belgium. When we talk about strategic dependencies, we talk about semiconductors, about nanotechnology. Well, the #1 research center in the world is here in Belgium with IMEC. And there are so many other domains in which we are absolutely world leaders. Arlind, you talked about the North Sea Summit, offshore wind. I mean, there's not many countries who are more a giant in that, whereas geographically we're actually very small in our capabilities. We are a small country with a small coastline, but we are building offshore wind parks throughout the world, and also in hydrogen, and also in so many domains. We are top of the world. I'm just giving you a few examples on why when the European Commission is making their innovation scorecard, Belgium is always on the top of the list. We are a leader in innovation, and that, to me, is the core. We are a hub of innovation. But beyond that, we are also about teamwork, and we are also about partnerships. Belgium was one of the founding members of the United Nations, of NATO, of the European Union, and 2 of those 3 organizations, actually, we are the host. This place in Europe has always been the place where people meet. This has always been the place where cultures meet. This has always been something which we are good at. That is, bringing different views together, bringing different perspectives together, and this has always been a convening place in the world that have so much convening power and so much decision power as Belgium and Brussels. We are in the league of the top 5 cities in the world if you compare it to decision power, and I'm not going to give the examples of the other cities. We're only going to talk about Belgium and about what we have here. Now, this sense of convening and this sense of partnership comes also with an openness for diversity. When Belgium was formed, almost 200 years ago, this is something we are going to celebrate later in 2030, we had one of the most liberal constitutions in the world, and our constitution is actually an example that has been used for so many other countries. Why was it such a beacon, that constitution? That is because it was extremely strong in protecting the basic rights and the basic freedoms of everyone. And indeed, if in a few days we are going to celebrate the fact that same-sex marriage is possible in Belgium for 20 years, we were #2 in the world when we installed that. This is an example of our openness to diversity. And if you look at the Rainbow Index, in general, we are #1 or #2 on that index, which is an index which shows the support for the LGBTQI rights. Standing up for basic rights is important, and it is something that we have always been particularly strong at. Last weekend, here in Brussels, we had the Brussels Pride. More than 150,000 people come here. And this is much more than only about LGBTQI rights. This is about supporting diversity. This is about supporting the right to be who you want to be. It's also a moment where we say that we care about this, and we care about those places in the world where it is not easy, and we care about the fact that even within Europe, we see some societies struggling with difference and struggling with diversity, and we see some societies where freedom is being defined as everyone having the same worldview as the person who says he cares about freedom. That's not our perspective on diversity. So this was the number one reason. #2 reason is this moment is a moment where we as Belgians have to bring our A game. We have to show who we are because it matters to the world. Showing who you are, you have to do it especially at a moment where there are difficulties, and at the moment where there are difficulties, we are ready to stand up, to step up and to show who we are and to show what we are best at. And if we look at all the challenges we have, fighting climate change, international security, strengthening our industry in Europe, actually the elements we need to face those challenges, to tackle those challenges, are actually the things which are at the core of what we stand for. Embracing openness. This is what you need today. If you look at the Russian aggression, well, if we would not be strong at partnerships, if we would not be strong within the European Union, if we would not have been strong on the partnerships within NATO, where would we stand today? Being divided would weaken us in a tremendous way. If we look at global warming, I mean, if we want to fight global warming, how are we going to do it? Well, we are going to do it by embracing innovation, by embracing technology, by using economic growth. Not less economic growth, more economic growth, but better. Not in the same way as we have been doing it in the past decades. And what we have done with the North Sea Coalition is a good example, again, of the convening power that we have as a country. We brought together the state and government leaders of 9 countries together, who all believe that innovation and working together is going to be the solution. This spirit of partnership, this spirit of innovation, this spirit of creativity, this is also what inspired what I called, beginning of this week, the European Industrial Deal. And I had the occasion to present it to Chancellor Scholz in Berlin and to also present it to the German industry. And that European Industrial Deal comes back to, again, three elements. First of all, if we want to keep European industry here, we will have to focus. And that means that we will have to focus on one element predominantly, and that's reducing CO2. And reducing CO2 should be our #1 priority, and we see that people are convinced of that. The general public understands that we need to do it. Our industry says we want to be a leader in this. Everyone understands that it is going to demand an effort. Everyone understands that it is going to demand resources. But this is something everyone is convinced of. Let's keep that momentum. Second element means that we will have to bring support. And we will have to bring support on our side to give an answer to what the United States have presented with the Inflation Reduction Act. That means that we will have to do it in partnership. We will have to do it together as European countries understands the strengths that we have, and again, forge partnerships for that. Third element is that we will need a European energy revolution, combining the different elements in which we are strong. Renewables is something we are particularly strong at on the European continent. And we will combine it with other technologies, such as nuclear, such as batteries, such as hydrogen, and so on. Again, if you look at that European Industrial Deal, it is about innovation, it is about partnership, and it is about creativity. These are the 3 elements which are at the core of our Belgian campaign. Last reason why we need a country strategy is this is who we are. And it goes much further than a tagline, a nice logo, or a nice phrase. This is the core of who we are. This is our DNA. Openness to innovation, openness to partnerships, openness to diversity. It's more than attributes. It's the DNA of who we are. Today, we are in times where we should look outwards and not look inwards. We are at times where we need to deepen connections. We should not sever connections. We are at a time where we should celebrate diversity and not fear diversity. And so the launch of this campaign, it's much more than a baseline and a campaign. To me, what we do here is reaffirming the fundamental values that we stand for. It is a declaration of our commitment to openness, a declaration of our commitment to innovation, and a declaration of our commitment to partnerships. And this is our way to say that we Belgians, we welcome all innovators. We welcome everyone who wants to build bridges. We welcome everyone who wants to fight for fundamental rights. Here or in the rest of the world, there are not many places in the world that combine this. Is it to be active here and impact our society? Is it to be active here and impact the rest of the world? We are the prime place in the world for people who want to achieve this. So I'm looking forward to use this campaign, when we talk with people, to use this campaign when we are present at international events, and I hope that all of you will use it as well. Thank you for being present here. I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister will be joining us for the panel discussion in just a moment, but first we're going to watch the video of the campaign, which will give you more of an idea of the messaging behind it.
Belgien tar forskning inom regenerativ medicin till nästa nivå. Detta är på grund av banbrytande teknologi och det innovativa forskningslandskapet. Om du har en idé finns det unika möjligheter att transformera planer till verklighet.
Que não era uma coisa óbvia para menino da periferia. Dia coreógrafo me viu dançar e depois de alguns meses eu já estava dançando na Bélgica, em uma das melhores escolas de dança contemporânea do mundo.
私は科学に情熱を燃やしています。ベルギーにはイノベーションの素晴らしいエコシステムがあり、コラボレーションをする情熱にあふれています。皆さんとても粘り強くて、たとえ突拍子のないアイデアでも喜んで意見を交わしてくれます。
Belgien ist Weltmarktführer im Bereich Greentech mit einer unternehmerischen Denkweise und bahnbrechender Technologie. Aus genau diesem Grund setzen Länder weltweit beim Bau ihrer Offshore-Windkraftanlagen auf Belgien, genau wie ich.
பெல்ஜியம் நாடானது சர்வதேச மருந்தக வலையமைப்பில் ஒரு முக்கிய புள்ளி. இங்கு பல அறிஞர்கள் தங்கள் திறமையின் மூலம் புதிய மருந்துகளை உருவாக்கி அதை நோயாளிகளிடம் கொண்டு சேர்க்கின்றனர்.
It's a melting pot of people from different cultures and backgrounds working together for a common goal. And I see that in the way people treat each other.
Positioned at the heart of Europe, Belgium is a leading logistics hub that connects continents and facilitates global trade. With its strategic location and commitment to sustainable solutions, including hydrogen, Belgium plays a crucial role in global supply chains and fosters international partnerships.
Belgium is not only home to the European institutions, it's a proud country, open to the world. Together, we are writing Belgium's story as a center of progress and innovation. Belgium is Europe at its best.
So there you have it, also with an endorsement from the Commission President, who also calls this country home at the moment. So now let's get started with the panel. I'd like to invite the four panelists to take the stage. As the Prime Minister mentioned, it's an international panel, which I think is really going to the core of this campaign and what it means to be open, innovative, and also looking out to the world, and how this country can be a home for people coming from all over. So let me introduce them to you now. So we have Ilham Kadri, who, as the Prime Minister mentioned, is the CEO of Solvay. Solvay is a real institution here in Belgium. It was founded in 1863. You can see the name Solvay all over the city on various buildings and landmarks. So Ilham has a business career that spans actually 3 decades over 4 continents, a very international background. At Solvay, she's really been focusing on a couple of main priorities, which is carbon neutrality, reducing inequalities, and making diversity a business imperative. She's also a board member at L'Oréal, at A.O. Smith, and serves as a chair of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. Then we have Federica Mogherini, who's the rector of the College of Europe in Bruges. So that is also a real institution here in Brussels because it's training the European leaders of tomorrow. It was founded in 1949, really designed to foster solidarity between Europeans and also give a pan-European outlook, I think, for leadership on this continent. Before that, Federica Mogherini was, of course, the High Representative for Foreign Affairs for the European Union, so also well known here in terms of EU politics in Brussels. And before that, of course, Foreign Minister of Italy. And then we have Brandon Wen, who's a fashion designer and performance artist based in Antwerp. Brandon studied at Cornell University in New York and at the fashion department of the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp, and also worked in Paris, designing for Rick Owens, Michel Lamy, Maison Le Marie, and Chanel, and others. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Ilham, let me start with you. Can I just get your reaction to what you've just heard from the Prime Minister and also to the main themes of the campaign?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I was wondering how he could put us together in a panel. Now I understand. He says we don't hold Belgian passports. It's true. But everything in my life brought me to Belgium. You may not know it, Mr. Prime Minister. My first paycheck was in Tavaux in France in a company called Solvay. I was 20. They didn't know at that time that I will end up a CEO 30 years later. Second, I came to Belgium actually to work for a company called UCV. It's another flagship of this country. And I took the best of it. I married a Belgian guy. And my son was born in Belgium. So indeed, I think I feel Belgium. I feel proud for Belgium. When I lived in 4 continents, more than 20 locations in the world, and being just in Brussels, I feel home, right? Back home. So that's number one, is very personal. Second, leading a company like Solvay, we are celebrating our 160th anniversary, 160. There are not many companies in the world who pass the mark of 160. And that's what you said, Alexander, is really true, is that we like in Belgium to live hidden and happy, and that's okay. Then people do not talk much about the history of Belgium. And when you look at Ernest Solvay, who founded Solvay 160 years ago, he was a humanist. He was a lover of science. By the way, Google Conférence de physique et de chimie in Belgium, right? And you will see, and Google the 1927 photo, according to Google, is the most intelligent photo of the history of humanity. You have there Marie Curie, one of my role models. You have there Einstein, you have Planck's, Poincaré, etc. And it was taken in the Parc Léopold, and there were many, many conferences held in Belgium. So for scientists like me, from an innovator, I started in research, I did PhD in chemistry. Belgium has been always an icon, but Belgium needs now to become a beacon. And that's what the campaign is about, is really to become that beacon for innovation, for partnerships, for diversity and inclusion. I think at Solvay, again, Ernest Solvay founded one of the first multinationals after World War I, called Solvay. And 10 years ago, you knew us because we invented soda ash process to produce glazing. Now our number 1 customers are in aviation, defense, electronics. There is no battery, EV battery, without Solvay inside. There is no green hydrogen without Solvay membrane. There is no electronics, bio shampoo, natural vanillin, which goes to the chocolate. So I like chocolates because it gives us business as well, without natural vanillin coming from Solvay. So I think, and I like what the Prime Minister said about being open to innovation. I think it's basically a small land, but gosh, great soul in Belgium, great talent. I was in IMEC, just visited, shame on me, a few months ago. I was so impressed because we are in the value chain of semiconductors, nano, etc. So there are talents, and Belgium is a magnet for talents, right? I can hire in Belgium talented people. I can attract people from other places to come to Belgium because our nationality, although we are a very international company, our nationality is Belgium. And the last but not the least is about partnership, and I think the transatlantic relationship are really great. I think as much as IRA has shaken a bit, things in Europe, the Belgium we are, the small chemical company we are, has won a contest beauty. IRA, we got a check, and we are building the largest PVDF membrane for EV in the United States of America. So the relationships, the diplomacy, the ties transatlantic are very important, and I truly believe that with China and with Asia, there is a big role, huge role to play here in Belgium for companies like ours. Thank you.
Thanks. So Belgium isn't just the chocolate, it's also the ingredients in the chocolate as well. Federica Mogherini, you've had the experience of both being in EU politics here in Brussels and also being in academia in Belgium. Tell me, let me get your reaction to the Prime Minister's speech, to the campaign, and also what it means to you to have spent your time here in Belgium.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you. I'm really excited about that. I think it's the first time I'm the testimonial of a campaign for a branding of a country, which is something that makes me very proud of, to do this for Belgium.
Don't tell the Italians.
No. You don't tell the Italians. I'm very proud. I'm very proud of being living in Belgium. And if I can tell you just my story, when I moved to Brussels, to Belgium, 2014, from Rome, which is still home for me, together with Brussels and Bruges today. When I left, I thought, okay, I do 5 years of mandate, and then I go back, because who wouldn't go back to Rome at the end of the day? And then I stayed. And I didn't even marry a Belgian. So I love chocolate, beer, and fries, but there is much more to that. And it is the fact that Belgium is, if I may, not only a great country, but it's a country that, being small but very complex, has this natural attitude of, if you allow me to use a word that we don't use that often, kindness and openness, in the sense of listening and respecting each other, because you wouldn't survive otherwise. It's a small but complex country, very diverse. And so it has the essence of, I would say, internal diplomacy in itself, in its DNA. Because you couldn't put together Belgium. It wouldn't work otherwise. So you're forced to be respectful, open, to listen, to understand, even to give. There's something that was said in the video that struck me a lot. Give even the craziest ideas a chance, because they might be the best ones. And actually, if you think of, now I'm not sure I'm going to say something you would like, but even things that in principle, on paper, shouldn't work, in Belgium do work. You find a way, which is very Italian, by the way, too. You find a way to make things work because it's a good thing to do. And it's a country where you can be who you are. It's a free country. It's a country that is really making you feel home. So I stayed. And yes, I experienced these two sides of Belgium so far. Then I'll maybe experience a third or a fourth one. But the European and international partnership element, I think Brussels is one of the cities that hosts more embassies in the world, if not the one. Many European countries, most of the European countries have 3 embassies here, not to mention consulates around Belgium. Again, I know for direct experience. It's an extremely multicultural and international city and society, and you feel it. You feel it. You can walk around the streets, not only in Brussels, but everywhere, either for migration waves, Italians in Charleroi, or for tourists, Chinese visiting Bruges. You hardly hear only Flemish and French and German in the cities and villages of Belgium. It's an international country, and it's a country where you can find anything if you're looking for that. But then moving to, and it's a country that I've seen this, and we have experienced this in the work we've done in the Council. It's a country that has and I hope, in its DNA, an attitude to compromise and international partnerships, because again, it's the exercise you do at home. And this is so powerful for the European Union, for NATO, for the international partnership we need to build. I think that Belgium is one of the European member states that has the most constructive, the most open approach to the European Union, NATO, and the international partnerships, which is so essential, as you mentioned, in the world of today. And also because it's the only country in Europe that cannot blame Brussels for decisions taken at European Union level, which is also a good asset. But then moving to Bruges, and at the College of Europe, I've seen how easy it is not only to work in the European institutions and in Belgium, but also to attract students to come and study in Belgium. First of all, because it's a beautiful place, but also now we have 50 nationalities of students, around 340 students every year that come, study the European Union, and then probably move around in Belgium, in Brussels mainly, but also in other institutions. And this element of support that the city gives, support that the government gives also, to this laboratory for the future of the European Union, is something that really, I think, reflects perfectly well this attitude of Belgium to contribute to the European integration and to the international partnerships development. And the diversity that you observe in a city that is beautiful and open to the world for tourism, but relatively small, it's unique. You should see the host families welcoming the students coming from all over the world and accompanying them in the journey, and the level of affection that our students keep towards the country and the city. I think I couldn't be more proud of the country I am living in, and I am really grateful for the way in which Belgians make, I think, all of us feel as part of this country, which is great.
So, Brandon, let me get your reaction also to the campaign. And maybe you could tell us a bit about what to you makes Belgium a good place to create.
Okay, so I'd also like to thank you for having me here. It's a great honor. I think with the campaign, it's ironic that, well, maybe unironic that a lot of it is, I think, my story and how I am here. Of course, I came here because of the Royal Academy in Antwerp and because of its enormous reputation in the fashion industry with designers like Dries Van Noten, Anne de Meulemeester, Margiela, Walter. But I think one of the things that made me stay is the amount of support that is here. I think diversity and innovation is sometimes always talked about only in terms of inclusion, but diversity and innovation are also very disruptive. And for it to work, it needs to then be supported by something. And that's something for me that's always been in Belgium, in Antwerp, that there's always a nice support for these ideas, and not just placing someone in a position so that it's shiny and there and for the press, but that it's actually people helping these ideas happen and grow and take root. I also think that creatively, Belgium is an extremely supportive country. So you sort of have Belgium is physically and artistically in between France and Holland, right? France is hugely traditional when it comes to art. It's about this bourgeois fine art culture. And Holland is extremely about newness and innovation, and everything's fresh. The design is about clean lines and sharp colors. And Belgium, for me, somehow sits in the middle of that, where a lot of Belgian designers and Belgian artists are people who have a very strong eye for tradition and for classical beauty, but are also searching to add to that with fresh ideas. And it creates an art culture and an art community that is very supportive of creative people, and especially young creative people, so that there's not such a high level of entry that you can't get noticed, but at the same time, you're not always replaced by the next best thing. So for me, that's why I stayed in Belgium, because of this support and because of support and extremely high taste, a high level of taste, which is important. Because it's, again, it's not just being caught by the next best shiny thing, it's really like grounded in what makes art and what makes fashion important and strong, and also what then takes it to the next level. So that's a bit my experience with creativity in Belgium.
It's an interesting point about Belgium being straddling two artistic worlds, because Belgium straddles so many worlds, and I hadn't actually really thought about that, about the artistic worlds as well. That's interesting. So we've heard there some international perspectives and Belgium's kind of outward-looking place in the world. Prime Minister, I wanted to ask you, maybe you could react a bit to what you've heard already, but also I wanted to ask you, so Belgium is taking over the rotating presidency of the Council of the EU in 2024. It's coming up very quickly. How will this campaign relate to the presidency? Because of course it's a time when individual EU countries become more visible, at least to other EU countries.
Well, first of all, I agree with everything which has been said. And you said it so much better than I could do it, and in a much more authentic way, obviously. But it's a story that I hear very often from people who come live here, is that they say there's no place in the world where after a few weeks you're at home, and everyone considers you as being at home. The threshold for becoming part of society here is extremely low. And there's many reasons for that, and we can go in detail about that, but that's not what we should do. It's just reality. And this is a very welcoming place from many perspectives, and I will do everything to keep it that way, because that's what we stand for, and that's our strength. And you know, we've often talked about diversity. For so long, I've always heard as a kid that our diversity, and I define diversity in all the different dimensions, language, culture, and so on. I've always heard that this was a disadvantage. I disagree. It's the opposite. It's our strength. And Federica, as you said, I mean, that fact that there is so many things together and so many ideas together, because diversity to me, in the end, is about ideas. It's about respecting the fact that there are different ideas. It's the biggest strength we have today. Because in the world today, if you want to go somewhere, you have to bring ideas together. And you know, if you are at the decision table, it's only people with blue suits and gray hair, and you have 10 of them, or you compare that with a table which is diverse, which table is going to take the best decisions? We all know that the second table is going to take better decisions. It might, to the rest of the world, be a bit harder. To us, this is our playground. This is what we live every day. So that is an incredible strength today to get things happen. It's bringing ideas together, and we have that from kindergarten. We have that in us. Now, to the European presidency will be but a specific presidency, because it's the end of the European tenure, so we will have 3 or 4 months, and then everyone will go into election campaign on the European level and also in Belgium, because we have quite a series of elections taking place here. I think, first of all, there will be some legislative work to be finalized, and obviously we hope it is as little as possible, so that our Spanish friends will have finished everything, but not sure that will happen, but this will be one of the things. And then a second element is what we should do is look forward for the next 5 years and make what I would call a strategic outlook for the European Union and try to set the agenda. And we will do that with 26 other countries, of course. And there are a few topics, and those topics relate to the discussions we have today. How do we forge our geopolitical place in the world as Europeans in openness? The last thing we should do is close ourselves to the rest of the world. That would be a gigantic mistake. We Europeans, we are the #1 trading partner in the world, and we should remain so. We are the #1 investor in development cooperation in the world, and we should remain so. We're the #1 investor in fighting climate change. We should remain so. We're the #2 in the world on defense spending. That's true, but we are increasing quite a lot. So that outlook of being more self-aware as Europeans in the rest of the world, but not in a dominating way, but rather in an open way and in a partnership way. That's the core of the European agenda for the next 5 years. And then there is another question, which is about the functioning of the European Union. We know that there have been quite a few countries which are in the process of maybe one day becoming part of the European Union, in the Western Balkans. And we now have some other countries. And Ukraine is doing incredible progress. In a country at war, incredible progress of doing all the things which are necessary to join the European Union. And this is an endless list to do it. And of course, we do this in an administrative way as European Commission. We say this and this and this you have to do, and you have to prepare, and you have to work, and so on. But maybe we also have to say that we have to do our homework as well, right? Because at some point, I think at some point, some more countries will join. Well, it's already not so easy, 27. Maybe we need to adapt a few things to be ready when other countries will join. And this is not only about unanimity vote, which is the thing that always comes up. This is about financial flows. This is about what is our policy. This is basically how will we function at a moment where a big part of the European continent is looking at us and looking at the European Union as a beacon of freedom, of respect, of prosperity, of security. I mean, this is what people see is they see the European Union, and this is the core of what we are as Belgians. So developing that agenda, doing all those things in 4 months, it's going to be quite a challenge. But I think we are up for this. Yeah.
Federica, I wonder if you could respond to, it's an interesting point that you just made, that diversity is sometimes seen as a negative in Belgium, that the narrative is that Belgium's diversity is what holds it back, what makes things so complicated. And I know that's definitely a narrative I hear from people outside Belgium a lot, that's their impression is, oh, it's a country in conflict where the diversity causes problems. But it's a different way to look at diversity, to say, actually, the diversity of this country is a model for the future and a model for other places. So I wonder, Federica, especially when you were here dealing with diversity in the European context, do you agree that diversity in Belgium is a model for Europe to follow?
Absolutely. It's a great asset. I think that you can handle complexity and you can build partnerships only if you have experienced complexity and you are aware of what it means and what it entails. And I think that Belgium has this unique asset of having to handle complexity and diversity, not having to handle, but having handled and handling complexity and diversity naturally, you said from kindergarten of your country also. And this gives you the tools to handle a dialogue, a respectful dialogue, a compromise, a negotiation, the build-up of a multilateral experience, being it the European Union, be it the United Nations, being it in other fields. And there is also another aspect that I think that sometimes is considered as an element of restraint, and that actually I think is an excellent asset. You referred, Alexander, to your modesty. I think that what we need today is international players, European players, that are as far as possible as arrogant. If you want to talk to the rest of the world and build partnerships, you need to put yourself in a position of respect, openness, and listening, and finding a common ground. And I think that what you define as modesty is actually this attitude of being aware of your strength, but also being aware that you're not the only one in the world and that others have their place around the table too, and you want to engage with them. And this modesty, I think, translates into this openness and this open attitude. And also something that I didn't mention before, but I think is a great asset for the country, is your sense of humor, if I may introduce an element that is not political, but it is political. Because this fact of not taking you too serious. I mean, you're serious. You do your job. Things work, and it's a great place to innovate, to work, to study, to do research, to do business. But it's also a place where things are taken for what they are, and it's an easy place. I think this is also an asset in the political and diplomatic arena, because who wants to deal with a country that is, or with an organization that is too much focused on itself? I think really being the heart of Europe, being the heart of this diverse and respectful and free place that we have built, and peaceful and secure place that we've built in this last decades, is really the essence and the DNA of Belgium, and it's a great asset. what I've experienced around the table of the European Union in different formations of the Council has always been a Belgium that was trying to help finding a solution, trying to help finding the best idea and to implement it, always with a constructive and attitudes, and this is great.
Well, let's open it up to the audience for some questions about the campaigns. We have a first question here, and there's a microphone coming behind you.
Hello. Hi, thank you. My name is Vince Chedwick. I'm a journalist. And when I moved here 10 years ago from Australia, I did what every expat does. They go to Filigrane and they buy 2 books. 500 Hidden Secrets of Brussels and King Leopold's Ghost. Every expat has those 2 books on their coffee table. I'm sure Dave can probably agree with me. And then you start to walk around the city. And then you see the statue. And then you have more questions, which just brings me to my question today. Has Belgium done enough to reckon with King Leopold's ghost? Isn't it time to take down at least the statue in the middle of town? Thank you.
This was a question to Brendan, or?
That was
It would be interesting to have his answer on it. Look, you might have noticed a lot of the things we've done related to our past. Our king expressed his regrets of the negative elements of the colonial period. And I haven't seen many countries do that. We discussed this in a very open way with our ex-colonies, and this is a topic which we are in full openness discuss about. And I think that you cannot build a good future together if you cannot look the past in the eyes. And I think we've done huge steps in that. And if I just look at, what I learned in school, the story about our colonial period is a very different story than what we tell today. And in my case, that was in the 80s, and that has changed quite a lot. And it's quite an open discussion here, and actually we're very open to look at what happened, the role we played. I don't think we were the only one playing that role. Many other European countries did that, but that's not an excuse. Now, to your question, how do you handle the symbols of that? Is the right answer to say we take it away and we hide it? I'm not convinced of that. I think that this is part of our history, and definitely we're not proud of everything that happened. And I think if you would ask the Belgians, I think you would probably get over everywhere the same answer. But taking it away and hiding it would be actually a way to say, okay, then when it's gone, then and we present excuses, and then it's over. To me, the element of excuses is something, okay, I apologize, and then I'm done with this, and it's gone. That's not enough for me. I think it is part of an ongoing relationship. And so I'm rather in favor of to say, it's there, it's our past. Let's look it right in the eyes, and let's explain it. And explain the negative consequences. That you might have gone to the Museum of Tervuren recently, the reopened one. This is a big debate, right? Do we keep a museum like that? In most countries, they've closed those museums and they've taken it away. We took a different path and we said, no, we will keep it. We will show the way we looked at colonies at that point, and then we will explain how we look at it today. My point is that it's better to look the past in the eyes and to acknowledge it, and to explain it, and to also explain regrets. And don't underestimate when our king expresses his regrets. It's related, it's a family thing. It's not just a country thing. I think that is actually a very powerful message, and this is what we've always heard when we talk with inhabitants of Rwanda, Burundi, and the DRC. But there's no perfect way of handling it. And if you have a different opinion on it, I respect that in full openness, diversity, and partnership.
So do we have another question for the panel? Oh, yeah, you've already got the mic. Great.
Grab the mic. Lyubov Pronina, Bloomberg News. Thank you very much for this inspiring presentation and opinions. I can also relate to quite a few of them. We like numbers, so my question is about numbers. How many people will be involved in this project? How you're going to finance it? And in terms of product range, Belgium already has given to the world a car engine, a Club Med, Fritz saxophone, and you have mentioned the energy projects, Alliance, and the medical research and achievement. So what's next in the product range made in Belgium for the rest of the world? Thank you.
The last part, I will let Ilham answer to that. You can do some product placement. No, on the campaign itself, from a financial perspective, it's quite modest. I mean, this is a budget of approximately $1 million a year, but it's not so much about having advertising in some of the worldwide newspapers. That's not the point. I think the point for us is that this is a very targeted campaign, and very often the value of making a campaign is the intellectual exercise of bringing it all together and really percolating it and saying, okay, what is it? Who are we? This is the exercise we made. Who are we? What makes us different in the rest of the world, and what are the weaknesses we have? And one of the weaknesses that we have is that indeed, we need other people to talk about us. And so this, for me, a big part of this campaign is just a few key elements of who we are. And then we will use this. We will use it when we talk with people on trade missions. We will use it when the rest of the world is coming here, which happens so often, and we also count on you. There is a reason why you were invited, right? There's no free lunch. We expect you to use it as well. Now, I mean, what's next out of Belgium? There's so many things, but more and more, none of them are pure Belgian, and this is the evolution we have. And I would take the example of IMEC. I see Luc van den Hove sitting right next to you as the CEO of IMEC. IMEC is the #1 research center in the world on semiconductors. But who are the biggest beneficiaries of that? Well, one of them is our Dutch friends, as always. ASML is the #1 machine manufacturer and uses, I mean, the relationship between ASML and IMEC is a very intimate one. ASML is in Eindhoven. We could complain about the fact that it's in Eindhoven and not in Leuven. But in the end, does it matter so much? No. This is just one cluster of industry built around that. And by accident, there is a country frontier going through it, a country border going through it. And in chemistry, it's exactly the same. I mean, we have the second biggest petrochemical cluster in the world. But in the end, this is also about Rotterdam, and it's also about Ruhrgebiet and so on. And again, frontiers are there more or less by historical accident, if I could call it that way. And again, to IMEC, who is doing research? Look, for you, I mean, it's Intel, it's Qualcomm, it's all of them are there. We are a puzzle in a global activity, and we think we are an important puzzle. But we don't have and I think, Federica, you said it, we don't have the arrogance to say, oh, it's all thanks to us. That's not how the world functions today. And I think that's the biggest mistake that is happening in the world, is that you see an evolution of so much self-affirmation, which I think is negative. And we see the consequences on the European continent, unfortunately, of that. But Ilham, so what's next in your product development pipeline?
I can commercialize my innovations here. No, but listen, on the openness for innovation, and frankly, it's linked to partnership and people and diversity, right? Innovation, you need people. It's the best asset. You need ingenuity. So you need education, good schools, you need talent, and you need a good place to live in to attract those people and, allow them to stay with you, right? So schools, I mean, marvelous. I mean, I'll start with Namur. They honored me with the PhD honoris, but there is KUL Leuven, Solvay Brussels, Solvay Business Schools, etc. Schools are all around, right? You need that talent and education basis. This is our bread and butter. And you need to attract other people. You've seen our Japanese leader of the headquarters, the research headquarters. He's a Solvay guy coming in, and he would not leave now Belgium or Brussels. You need the value chain. We are nobody without our customers and without IMEC-like, right? We're in the semiconductors, a clean place. We produce peroxide in Belgium, so we need that value chain, all right? We need a port like Antwerpen, where you have launched your hydrogen strategy, and I was honored to be part of it, because we are today innovating in membranes for green hydrogen, right? And Belgium is blessed with the coast, with the wind power energy. It can really be the hub for Northwest European countries and commuting the hydrogen from north to south. Why not? That's a big ambition which can happen. We are innovating in Belgium with our battery generation 5. Today we are commercializing, selling our generation 2, but generation 5 will be cheaper, smaller, safer, more affordable, right, for EV cars and batteries. So we see Belgium and we see our hub here in the headquarters for research and innovation as really critical, right, for innovating, for bringing the next innovations, and also connecting with the rest of the world. On diversity, equality and inclusion, this is close to my heart. I'm pure product of the three of them. But frankly, what Belgium does it right, and that's what Alexander said. Even if you target diversity in numbers, you may have it right 1 year, 2 years, but if you are not inclusive, if you don't listen to it, it will not stick with you. It will leave you, and the best people leave you first. So diversity is what you see, inclusion is what you do, and that's what Belgium does it very well. I think Alexander said after a few weeks you feel home, that's called inclusion. It's invaluable. It's the listening, it's being part of the community, it's the belonging, it's bringing your whole self at work, whoever you are. If I'm grown in Casablanca, Moroccan origin, woman of color, be it, I bring my whole self at work and I feel respected as such in this country. And this has no value, no penny you can link to that, right? So in Solvay, for us, D&I is key. We are not doing it for charity. It impacts the bottom line. Our best, highly performing people are the most diverse and inclusive people. And equality is important as well, right? We did our coming out last year, not only LGBTQ+ and having employee resources in that space, but also on equity in wages gaps between men and women. It happens that in Belgium is the other way around. Belgium, they are great in doing things in the opposite way. Women are paid more than men without the salary of the CEO, more than men in Belgium at Solvay. It happens this way. It's an anecdote. It's not the case in other countries. We are closing the gap in the other side. But I think the equality and inclusion is so critical. You need to build that infrastructure, that environment of listening, of respect, of dignity. It's about people dignity, to allow diversity to unleash its potential and to stick with you. And frankly, that's a value proposition, a differentiator for this country, and a beautiful one.
I think it's a nice note to leave it on. So we'll wrap up the panel there. Thank you so much to the panelists for some really interesting insights about your own personal experiences in Belgium. Before we head out to the networking lunch, I'd just like to turn it back over to the Prime Minister for some closing words.
I thought I had spoken enough. I would like to repeat what I just said. There's no free lunch. We count on you. And that's how we work. As I said, I think the exercise we've done here, embracing openness and explaining what it stands for and what is the core of our country. It's innovation, it's partnerships, it's diversity. That's the core. And the cherry on the cake, that's chocolate, beers, and diamonds, and so on. I mean, it's still there. It's still there. It's still an important part of maybe something else. I mean, we Belgians, we like the good life. And we work hard, but we also like to live. And this is maybe one of the things we haven't talked about, is good life, getting to know each other. That's also what we do, and that's why you're invited to this networking lunch. Thank you for being here, and we count on you.
Great. So we now have the cherry on the cake of the networking lunch. As you head out to the networking lunch, we're going to play the video one more time if you're interested in sticking around and seeing it. Otherwise, enjoy your meal.